Today, we will touch upon one interesting question. Why, in our turbulent times when whole empires are falling apart, for example, the Soviet Union and the communist bloc of Eastern Europe, people with certain facial features come to power? Political regimes in countries seem to be changing dramatically. But if you look at the new leaders of these countries, who have emerged almost from the people, then there is a strange feeling that these are, if not relatives, then individuals of the same species. Consider the most prominent feature of rulers from the people. Nose. I have a separate video about the noses of royal dynasties. But here's what's interesting. The royal nose of the ruling elite of our world is not a thing of the past. Today, this nose also adorns the rulers of modern countries. And it would not be so surprising if these rulers came from the royal families of Europe. But the fact of the matter is that supposedly people with almost proletarian origin, and who became presidents or prime ministers, as a result of democratic elections, have for some reason the same royal nose. So that you understand what kind of nose shape I'm talking about, look at this picture of 1822nd year. With a simple name at the window on a summer night. You'd think it was Venice. But no. This is an ordinary St. Petersburg girl with a classic royal nose. An ancient bust standing nearby simply screams that the girl and the head of a warrior are of the same blood and of the same species. Here is another picture from St. Petersburg. Coat of Arms Hall of the Winter Palace. 1834th year. Look at these thoroughbred ladies. So, we have a very good distinguishing feature of the royal dynasties, not only of Western Europe, but also of Russia. At the beginning of the 20th century, these dynasties seemed to have left the political arena, and new leaders began to rule the countries, and from the biography of which it is clear that they do not have relatives of royal blood. Now let's take a look at the photos of these leaders. And we will start with the German Cinderella, Angela Dorothea Merkel. She was born in Hamburg on the 17th of July, 1954th year. Father Horst Kastner, who had Polish roots, changed his surname Kazmarczak to Kastner before Hitler came to power. He studied theology at the University of Hamburg. Angela's grandfather Ludwig Kazmarczak served as a police technician. Then in 1923, he moved to Berlin, where he also served in the police. In 1943, he received the rank of Hauptsergeant in the security police of the Berlin district of Pankow. Angela's mother Gerlinde Jansch was born in Danzig. And oddly enough, there is very little information about Angela Merkel's mother on official websites. But we'll come back to it later. In 1954th year, Angela's father was appointed pastor in the parish of the Lutheran Church of Perlenberg, 100 kilometers from Berlin, that is, on the territory of the Gür. While living in the Gür, Angela Merkel joined the Pioneers, and then the German Komsomol Union of Free German Youth. In 1973, she entered the physics department of the Karl Marx University of Leipzig. 1982. Merkel is already working in Berlin at the Central Institute of Physical Chemistry. In 1989, Merkel joins the Democratic Breakthrough Party. In 1990, she received the position of Deputy Press Secretary of the first elected government of the Gür. After the unification of Germany, Merkel miraculously gets the post of minister in the fourth cabinet of Helmut Kohl. She was in charge of family and elderly issues, as well as women's and youth affairs. On October 16, 1994, she received the post of Federal Minister for the Environment, Nature Protection, and Nuclear Safety. On November 22, 2005, she was elected to the post of Federal Chancellor of Germany. At first glance, this is a completely real story. Cinderella, from a poor family completely independently without any connections, became almost the sole head of the largest European state, and ruled this state for more than 15 years. So it is, but if you dig a little deeper, it turns out that Cinderella Merkel also had a good fairy, who, as in the famous fairy tale, helped to occupy the royal throne. And it seems that Merkel was not the only one with such a fairy. And in general, the whole biography of Merkel looks like a well-planned operation. Look, 1954 year, millions of refugees are fleeing from East Germany to West Germany. Angela Merkel is born and her parents, who already live in West Germany, for some reason go against the general movement of the masses of people to the east. That is, people leave a well-fed Hamburg and go to a small town in the Gür. Historians explain this illogical behavior of Angela Merkel's family very simply. Allegedly, Angela's father was a Lutheran pastor, and he represented the Lutheran movement supported by the Gür government. So that's it. One can certainly believe that he was an ardent fanatic of a certain religious trend. And this fanaticism was instilled in him by his parents. Well, that's what's strange. The grandfather of Angela and Merkel was never a religious fanatic, and in general very often changed his beliefs. In the First World War, he fought first for the Germans, then deserted, and fought for the French against the Germans. Then he moved to Germany and changed not only his surname, but also his denomination. From a Catholic, he became a Protestant. Horst's son, baptized according to the Catholic custom, also changed his surname and denomination. So there were no religious fanatics in the family of Angela Merkel. No one defended their faith. Or rather not so. The exact religion of the Merkel family is difficult to determine now. After all, this family came from the Polish Jewish community. Mother Gerlinda Enich, Polish Jew. Father is a Polish rabbi. Of course, this is all at the level of unproven gossip. But Angela, Dorothea and Merkel have one very creditable award, which she does not really like to advertise. Here is a medal established by the non-governmental organization, Bnei Brit, which means Sons of the Covenant in Hebrew. Upon presentation of this award, the laureate additionally receives a certificate and a certain amount, the amount of which is not disclosed. This award is given to outstanding personalities who have devoted 40 years to creating the well-being of the Jewish people and the State of Israel. Now let's talk about the good fairies who helped the angel from the first days of her life. The first fairy was, oddly enough, the government of the socialist Gür. It was it that, immediately after Merkel's birth, invited her father to become a Lutheran pastor in a small Gür town. At first glance, the offer is not very tempting. Move from rich West Hamburg to an eastern town with 10,000 inhabitants. But this is only at first glance. The Communist Party of the Gür could create truly royal conditions for a Lutheran priest. Here's a look at how he lived in the poor Gür. The priest has 2 cars, one personal, one with a personal driver. Angela's father was allowed to travel to Germany at any time at will and without the consent of his superiors. Clothes and books were sent to him from Hamburg. Not all Gür party workers lived like a small-town Lutheran pastor. Despite the fact that Merkel grew up in a pastor's family, this did not prevent her from getting a higher education at all. Her sister Irena and brother Marcus received the same education. The pastor's daughter not only received a higher education, she became a member of the district committee and secretary for agitation and propaganda. The next magical fairy for Angela was Thomas Demy, who was born in 1954 year in Bonn. He came from a famous French Huguenot family. His father Ulrich Deja Mezer served as a Wehrmacht lieutenant colonel in World War II. After being wounded on the Eastern Front, he worked at the General Staff of the Wehrmacht. He visited Adolf Hitler's bunker and was one of the first to learn about his suicide. In May 1945, he participated in negotiations with the Red Army on the surrender of Germany. After the war, Ulrich de Mezer became one of the main creators of the Bundeswehr. So, the son of the creator of the Bundeswehr in the 90s became very friendly with Angela Merkel. Here they are together at a party congress in Mecklenburg in the early 90s. Then the miracles continue. Quite by chance, Thomas de Maisier's cousin Lothar de Meer, who, unlike Thomas, grew up in the GER, became the first elected Prime Minister of East Germany in April 1990. Just fantastic coincidences. Two cousins grow up on opposite sides of the border. Thomas Ferg and his dad are the creator of the Bundeswehr. Lothar in the GER. And oddly enough, they are both very successful. At the beginning, Lothar holds the post of the first Prime Minister of the GER. Then Thomas, in the 2009 year, holds the post of Minister of the Interior. So it was Thomas who introduced Ouattara to Angela Merkel in the 90s, and he gave her the first significant post in her career. As Deputy Press Secretary of the GER government. Then Helmut Kohl took up Merkel's career. They had quite a close relationship. Angela Merkel very often flew to Kohl's dacha in a military helicopter, naturally at the state expense. When the journalists found out about it, a scandal even broke out. It is difficult to say what kind of relationship there was between Kohl and Merkel now. It was hinted that she was his mistress. But here's the strange thing, Angela never seemed to be attracted to men. She had 2 marriages. From her first husband, she left herself silently collecting things. Merkel's second husband is also quite entertaining. This is her Achim Sauer. The man seems decent, but his first wife left him when she caught Sauer in bed with a man. Here is another interesting statement about the orientation of Angela Merkel. Once the wife of ex-Chancellor Schroeder, Doris Schroeder, for her open text that Angela Merkel's personal life does not correspond to the experience of most women. That's how, due to a series of completely random events, a girl with a remarkable nose became the leader of the richest European country. And this girl has been unsinkable for 15 years. Other European politicians are removed from their posts for banal bribes, and Merkel is forgiven for everything. Work with the Stasi. Allegedly, there are no documents confirming this. But you must agree, being a member of the District Committee of the Union of Free German Youth, and Secretary for Agitation and Propaganda. How, with these regalia, Angela Merkel could evade cooperation with the Stasi? After all, the Union of Free German Youth is the only communist youth organization of the GER. Also, Merkel's career was not hindered by her hangouts with neo-Nazis and skinheads. Moreover, her visit to them occurred in 1993, almost immediately after the high-profile crime. Skinheads beat the anti-fascist Torsten to death with a baseball bat. So the pastor's little daughter ruled Germany like an unsinkable aircraft carrier for 15 years. And no scandals could interfere with this royal rule. The Queen can leave this post only by order of the persons who appointed her to this post. Which is what happened this fall. That's it. Watch my channel.